That was quite a start to week 0 to the college football season, was it not?
I enjoyed myself, Ty. I truly did. I didn't know what to expect from that game, but that was fun. You get a game ender? I'm great with that way to start a season. Why not?
Absolutely incredible that the first game of the year finished like that on a game-winning kick by Georgia Tech, of all teams, to dump a top 10 Florida State in the first damn game of the year. Could not have drawn it up any better, at least from a dramatic college football standpoint. My apologies to the Florida State fans out there, but wow, what a start, man. What a start.
It was great. It was a fun back and forth with both teams starting out, getting in the end zone. Florida State going for 2, getting 2 to start out the game.
On the swinging gate, no less.
On that swinging gate. And to come out and see Georgia Tech with a very specific game plan of going straight at Florida State on the ground. Jamal Haynes King. What is it? Haynes your way?
Haynes our way.
Haynes our way. Excuse me.
The double Haynes backfield, as you know.
The double Haynes backfield. The defense did a really nice job against Florida State. Really, for the most part, flattened the Noles on the ground, right? Like just going sideline to sideline, filling lanes, just doing what pretty good defenses do. And that was the big question for Georgia Tech, right?
Just doing what they do. So,
hey, sorry for the quick interruption, but it'd be incredible if you considered subscribing to the Solid Verbal YouTube channel right down below.
Hello, welcome. I'm Ty. He is Dan. If you are new here to the Solid Verbal, we will be doing this all year long.
Yeah.
Although I don't suspect we'll have top 10 upsets like this all year long.
I don't know, man.
Who knows? Brave New World. Hit follow, hit subscribe so that you don't miss any of our podcast episodes here as college football gets rolling. We have some housekeeping items that we will talk about momentarily, I promise you, but I don't want to bury the lead. The breaking news is that Georgia Tech knocked off Florida State by a 24-21 score. They did so on a last-second field goal by Aiden Burr, 44 yards inside the left upright. Tech gets off the schneid and wins a big one in Ireland, of all places. It was cloudy, it was rainy, it was sunny, it was happy. It looked to be a pretty vociferous crowd on hand in Aviva Stadium to watch the Aer Lingus college football kickoff. And alas, we got a game that was well worth it. It's one of those rare instances, Dan, where the entirety of the college football watching public is all watching one game. We don't have to divert our attention and do quad boxes or cover games going on in other conferences or whatnot. This was all ACC, everyone's attention on Florida State, Georgia Tech. Florida State, again, top 10 team coming into this game. Florida State, by some measures, was potentially a conference, potentially a playoff contender. I guess that could still be the case, but
of course,
definitely not off to a great start on the Seminole side. Much more the story of what Georgia Tech was able to do, which frankly was overlooked going into this game. And they did so very much on the ground, very much behind Haynes King, behind Jamal Haynes. For the most part, it felt to me like Georgia Tech was the more impressive story of these two squads.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. They came in with the game plan and stuck with the game plan. Haynes King, just an unbelievably tough runner and unbelievably clutch. I think they only faced 9 or 10 third downs. And they were 5 of 9. So Florida State wasn't able to get off the field. Haynes King with some scrambles and finding a dude sort of sitting in a zone on third down. It's 3rd and 5 and he completes a pass for 7 yards, right? He was just efficient. Nobody really succeeded downfield, but it seemed like it was Georgia Tech finding more of those chunk plays, finding that ability to get off the field. This was not a game that saw, a back and forth in the way of like quick drives here, quick drives there. I think it was an 8-minute touchdown drive, a couple of 6+ minute drives for Georgia Tech. And so Florida State, especially with an especially listless second quarter, right? They just limited their own opportunities, especially in that second half. They weren't able to get it going through the air downfield basically at all until the end of the game. Yeah. And for Georgia Tech, it was just that ability on defense to smother, to make tackles, to read keys. It looked like Florida State, especially up front, they were looking in different directions all the time. They were taking bad angles. They weren't wrapping consistently. And here's the sort of warm blanket, right? The phrase is wet blanket when you want to be a downer. It's game 1.
Yeah.
If you're a Florida State fan, I understand freaking out. Here's the good news. You're undefeated in America. You're undefeated domestically, okay? And there's a whole world in front of you. The story here is still Georgia Tech because they don't have the talent. They had bigger questions pretty much on both sides of the ball, right? Haynes King with interceptions on offense and defense. Everything was a question. Hire a new defensive coordinator, come in and look like the better prepared team. Look like there was more energy running through Georgia Tech players. And so, that's on the Florida State staff, that if you're not able to get your team locked in when everybody's locked in on you, that's a situation. So, again, wouldn't freak out if I'm a Florida State fan. I think Georgia Tech is going to be pretty good this year. Brutal schedule, if I remember correctly, right?
Brutal schedule. Yeah, it's impossible. It's impossible. I would have to see it to believe it.
Yes.
If you told me at the end of this year this is a bowl team, but obviously off to a pretty good start
well,
here.
That changes a little bit today.
Who knows? Yeah.
Because you probably didn't consider that a Georgia Tech win going into the season when you were evaluating their schedule. So maybe that changes some calculus. And look, the Georgia Tech defense to me was still, it's obviously the running, it's obviously the physicality on both sides of the ball, but it was, I don't know, the Georgia Tech defense that the calculus changes if they're feisty on that side of the ball, right?
Look, they didn't play any defense last year.
No.
They played no defense last year, and they went out. They bring in Tyler Santucci, who's their new defensive coordinator, who's supposed to come down and do something, right? Try to revitalize a pass rush or get better at tackling or just scheme things up. And you may recall, we talked about it in the build-up to this game. Maybe Tyler Santucci can look at DJU's body of work, because DJU is, for lack of better terms, a very known quantity in college football. And that's not always used as a compliment.
Right.
But you just sort of know what you're getting with this guy. And as it were, it does seem as if Georgia Tech was really prepared on the defensive side of the ball. They did not get pushed around. They did not get beat deep by DJU, really at all. They showed a stat at halftime where his average air yards per attempt was negative 0.1. Everything.
That can't be. What, really?
Everything was behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
In the early part. Now, down the stretch, he did kind of grow into the game a little bit and was really big on a tying drive that made that obviously a really important drive down the stretch and a fun game as Georgia Tech got the ball for the last time and went down and won the game. But I think the takeaway from the Florida State side of it, frankly, is this what the offense is going to be all year? Because that was certainly something that leaves a lot to be desired. There just was no downfield threat. I wrote down in my note sheet here that they played a lot of pickleball. And
it was. On
top of that, the shots that they had farther down the field, DJU was inaccurate. He seemed slow. He seemed out of sync. So, again, look, Mike Norvell's very good at this. And Mike Norvell will coach him up, and I think the offense will be better. What you saw was not representative of what I think Florida State will be all season. But that being said, this is not still a really good Georgia Tech defense. They're not going to suddenly turn into the 85 Bears out there, Dan.
Right. That's a reference, children, of a team that was very good 73 years ago. Yeah.
If you're a Florida State fan, you got to be looking at this and shrugging a little bit and feeling a bit underwhelmed. The final point that I'll make on this game from the Florida State side is I read a lot in the build-up to this game about how Florida State had one of the best defensive lines in the country, and that was going to control the point of attack, and that's how they were going to beat Georgia Tech in this game.
Yeah.
Still could be the case. Obviously, the people talking about that know Florida State a lot better than I do. So kudos to them. Kudos to this line. It still could end up being one of the best in the country. It wasn't. It wasn't in week 0. They got pushed around by Georgia Tech, a team that they shouldn't get pushed around by, even though it's a veteran unit on the Tech side of things. So we'll see how they grow and materialize and develop over the course of time. As we've said time and again, there is a big difference between your first game and your second game every year.
And the rest of the year. And this could be, you might as well get that reckoning and have that about face after week 1, right? That raw talent does not necessarily mean raw effort. And
no,
it wasn't just on the defensive line. It was secondary. It was tackling. It was linebackers. It was not getting off the field on third down. There was a lot that was going on. Interestingly, something I'm now going to monitor than I thought I was going to have to is pop at receiver for Florida State. I know DJU was a little bit off and he was overthrowing and he was not going through progressions perhaps as well as he could have, but Keon Coleman's not on this team. Johnny Wilson's not on this team. I wonder, and maybe it's the youth that grows into their roles as the season progresses, because I know there's some promising names there, but didn't see a ton there.
No. Well, again, that was one of your questions that you brought up during the Florida State preview.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Malik Benson's the name we know. Can he kind of fill that void or help fill that void, or who else is going to step up? It's still a good team. Still going to win a bunch of games.
Sure.
I do think it's a bit disturbing, though, to go up against the Georgia Tech defense that we all assumed was pretty much dead to rights before the year even started. And not only did Georgia Tech look better, but Florida State looked a lot worse on offense compared to what we're used to. So, more to come on that front. I do want to give a shout out, if I can. How about Ryan Fitzgerald, the kicker for Florida State?
Two absolute boots on this field. It's Georgia Tech's dude and Florida State's dude, with Georgia Tech's guy hitting it at the end. But yeah, Ryan Fitzgerald. Woo!
Ryan Fitzgerald, a 52-yarder at the start of the second quarter, and then a 59-yarder that probably would have been good from like 62-ish at the gun at halftime. So put those through, tied the game up at 14 at halftime. Florida State didn't score until about 6.5 left in the fourth quarter to tie it. Georgia Tech gets the ball. They drain the clock. They go down and they win it on that 44-yard kick. So
yeah, my math says that was 2 touchdowns for Florida State against this Georgia Tech defense.
2 touchdowns. They scored on that first drive. They looked like they could be national championship worthy on that first drive.
Yeah, it's a scripted thing. Yeah.
Lawrence Toafili got the touchdown there. And then, not until about 6.5 left in the game when Roydell Williams, the transfer from Bama, got in from 1 yard out.
So nearly 4 quarters, Georgia Tech holds Florida State, after that first touchdown out of the end zone. That's a crazy number. And if this Georgia Tech defense is indeed much more real than it was last season, and Tyler Santucci, obviously familiar with the ACC, and Duke has had some pretty good results against Florida State. I don't know. I think it changes an outlook.
Well, I hope
considerably for Georgia Tech.
I hope so. And it should, right? You beat the number 10 team in the country. Say what you want about preseason polls, but this was absolutely a big-time showing, a big boy showing for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. So give them kudos. Brett Key got that team ready to go in the offseason, and Tyler Santucci already earning his money on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah. Haynes your way, baby. I tweeted it at Georgia Tech. Haynes your way in that backfield.
All right. Love it. What an opener.
24-21. So look, this is the Fantasy Things episode.
Ooh, jam-packed.
This is the Fantasy Things episode. We will get into that momentarily. Before we do, though, a few very quick points of housekeeping. Number 1, we updated the Patreon tiers out at verballers.com.
Yes.
Go on out there if you're interested in supporting what Dan and I do, see what we have to offer. The game is now also ready for business. Run the board, up for business. You play for a season-long prize of joining our board of trustees, or you can just play for a week 1 prize starting up next week, which is a $500 Visa gift card. Thought about buying the PlayStation this year, but not everybody wants the PlayStation. Everybody can figure out something to do with $500, yeah?
I feel like at this point, you can do like half a grocery shopping at this point, right?
Whatever you want.
Some turkey and salami, and maybe that's it. I don't know.
Whatever you're into. $500.
Oh, man.
So
good.
Is on the line if you win our week 1 pick'em pool. There'll be a bunch of games. There will be some player props on there as well. 10 to 12 selections.
$500.
You got to be a member, though, at verballers.com. Any paid tier will get you into our game.
Unless what? Unless you're afraid of competition.
Some
people out there shy away from proving their smarts. And maybe somebody listening is like, I don't have what it takes. But I know there's a lot of people listening who are like, this is easy money. This is no-brainer, right? I'm a competitive human. Let's get it on. That's the kind of audience that we've cultivated here on the Solid Verbal. Unless you have stumbled across this show and you're just like, competing is not for me. I am scared. Right? That's it.
The only other thing that I'll mention is we've updated the merch store. If you go to our website, solidverbal.com, we got new shirts. We got a Win Your Clunker shirt out there. Finally, we've got new mugs. We've got new glasses. We've got new hats. We've got water bottles. We're waiting on the magnets because the magnets right now are a little too expensive. Let's be real about
true.
this. The reminder magnets are a great idea,
I
and we all
can't,
love
in
them.
good conscience, charge a ton of money for magnets. It's just not something we can do.
No, we're not doing $10 magnets. That's not worth it. But we're going to see if we can figure out a way around that.
We'll get it cheaper.
If you know anybody out there who does magnets on the cheap, hit us up, solidverbal@gmail.com.
I'm so happy with where we landed with our merch that I want to buy Solid Verbal merch, and I feel a little bit corny doing so because the fear would be randomly coming across a college football fan and I'm wearing a Solid Verbal shirt and somebody saying, "Oh, I listen to Solid Verbal too," and I have to be like, "It's my show and I'm wearing the shirt."
I know. I try not to wear. I have a bunch of our gear. I try not to wear it outside the house.
It's really,
And sometimes I forget.
Yeah.
And I'm always kind of like going in there cross-armed, trying to hide.
One of the hats just says Solid on it. So you can kind of get away with that, right?
Correct.
It's merch.solidverbal.com. Did I get that right?
Merch.solidverbal.com. Yeah.
Okay.
Or go to our website. I'll put it out there as well.
Yeah.
And we'll tweet it and whatnot. The final thing is Big Ten Breakfast, the show that you and I are working on diligently.
Oh, baby.
Our Big Ten Breakfast preview show drops a little bit later this week, right?
Yes. The first episode, confirm with me, Ty. I don't want to speak out of turn. I think we're going to do the first episode Thursday morning, but it's typically going to be Fridays at 9 a.m. Eastern, streamed on our YouTube channel and beyond.
Correct.
But because this is the lone week with a very interesting Big Ten game on Thursday night. There are some Friday nights during the year, no Thursday night Big Ten games as far as I can tell. Minnesota, North Carolina is Thursday night. So we're going to put out our first episode Thursday morning. It's a Friday show otherwise.
BigTenBreakfast.com.
On the YouTube channel. Yeah.
We'll get you over to our YouTube channel so you can subscribe and you won't have a chance to even miss that.
Boom.
Even if you're away from your computer or device. Okay. We have done this since 2016, 2017. Pretty regularly.
Right in there. Yeah.
We didn't do one last year. There was another year at some point along the way that we skipped. We have traditionally done this as a live show, but we didn't do any of those this year. We had such requests to do this episode again that we started putting our pen to paper, thinking through some possibilities. And alas, we have some rosters that we have constructed. I posted out on our Patreon at verballers.com. I also posted across our social media channels to have people send in some of their own suggestions for Fantasy Things 2024. With that being said, for people who are new here and don't understand what this is, you've heard of fantasy sports before, for sure. If you're listening to a college football show, we have a little bit of a different spin on it, Dan, do we not?
We do. This is a draft of ongoing esoteric college football narratives. Would that be something? But like not too serious, as in like James Franklin can't win the big one, but more specific, like late game James Franklin decisions, right? That it's not just like the overarching thing. Like probably collectively our favorite one of these is this quarterback, this young gutty quarterback has a little bit of Baker Mayfield in him.
Correct.
Right? It's predicting specific conversations around the sport, whether it's during a broadcast or like an ongoing conversation we're all having regarding college football during the season, right?
Over the years, some of the more popular ones that we've selected, a little bit of Baker Mayfield in him was a big one, a crowd favorite. My personal favorite, the best one I've ever come up with, was uncontrollable touch screens. By that, if you've watched any of these pregame shows, any of the halftime shows, they all go to the big screen and they try to draw on it and it's not responsive and it doesn't work. It's never worked in the history of the touch screen at that size, yet they continue to do it. So we've had those over the years. We've had other ones where we're making fun of things like, I don't know, Jim Harbaugh's just general demeanor. We've had that one out there. Trying to think what else.
We had like the strength coach with the screw loose was an old time favorite.
Strength coach has a screw loose.
Yeah.
We've had the aggressive attacking defense that every new coordinator is going to run. If nothing more, these are observations that we have made about previous years, observations that we've made in the preseason here.
Monsoon game. Yeah.
Monsoon games, things that we are going to project forward as being part of our larger college football discussion in 2024.
Yeah, we're sort of the Ryder Cup captains here, right? It doesn't happen every year, but we're selecting our squad that we think we have a pretty good chance going into the season with, right?
There is no defined scoring system. We've tried to keep track of these over the years. It's never actually worked. The closest we have come to that is an episode every offseason where you and I argue over who won.
Yeah, that's true.
And then I've been accused of being a beta male and being bowled over by you in those conversations. I'm not going to comment further on that. I feel rather secure with my teams of the past. We will see how we do here today. Before each selection, we stole many years ago the official draft chime from ESPN's draft coverage, and we use that every time there is a pick. What did we settle on? 5 picks per?
For today?
Something like that? Is that?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm just going to go through my entire roster quickly. We're not going to belabor these. Yeah, we can do 5 main picks and then go through our also receiving votes.
That is the way it's worked. And again, we had people send in some of their suggestions that we're going to go through here and give some of those their due, because there were some good ones that came in. Some that kind of stepped on my toes, but I'm going to let it slide, and we're going to give them benefit of the doubt here. Give them their due. Do you want to make the first pick?
I would love to make the first pick. Okay, so I'm going just by what got the biggest laugh when I told you my picks yesterday.
Okay.
So I don't know how to properly qualify this, but it's essentially any sort of talker, a broadcaster, a radio person, a TV person, a game day host, whatever, when reacting to the modern era of college football, your realignment, your transfer portals, your NIL, your TikTok, your whatever. That made me sound young, right? Your TikTok.
Made you sound very old, very old.
Anybody who says some version of, I guess I'm just old school. As a preamble, as a full thought, anybody, especially if they're over the age of, I don't know, 50, who knows what the entry point is going to say like, yeah, they opted out of a huge game in the postseason or whatever. And, you know, when I played, we were just playing for our brothers, but I guess I'm just old school.
Do you think we'll get one of these out of Saban in week 1?
Oh my God, immediately? So I would set it at 7.5 over the course. Some sort of variation of, in my day, I guess the way we used to do things, you know, people don't love it anymore, but, you know, people went to schools because they thought that's where they'd want to go to school. I think we're going to get that from Saban. Absolutely, yes.
I feel like especially this year, because so much is changing.
Yeah.
So much is new, so much is different. All of the parts of the sport that everyone hated 2 years ago have only gotten more amplified over the course of time. It has not gotten better. If anything, it's gotten worse. You layer on top of it now realignment. You layer on top of it even new networks.
Yeah, of course.
Covering the sport differently, covering different leagues, right? SEC going to be on ESPN. CBS going to have Big Ten games. Going to have, like, a lot of the media landscape is different and feels different from afar. So I think even from where we sit, it's easy to sit here and say, I guess I'm just old school. But for sure, if you're part of the game, if you're actually part of it, the way Saban was, the way any of these guys are who are talkers on our TVs on Saturday mornings, I got to believe they're all going to feel similarly.
I'm going to be honest with you, Ty. I will accidentally say this 3 to 7 times this season. I will put my thumb on the scale, but without any sort of intention, because I can't help but also be an old man with certain elements of this sport. Yeah, there should be a conference on the West Coast, but I guess I'm just old school in that way.
That's that's up there with my aggressive attacking mentality for the new defensive coordinator.
I wonder who is going to, like, in terms of volume, the volume play here, who is going to be the most guilty? You kind of think Saban, and he's going to have a big platform.
I could see Klatt. I could see Klatt venturing into this territory.
Klatt's going to be in there. Yep. Anybody lamenting?
Klatt's as old as us.
I know.
He's not that old of a dude, but there is that old school sort of like football bunker mentality that you hear from time to time when he's calling a game. I could see him kind of wading into this territory.
I could see Rod Gilmore launching a podcast called I Guess I'm Just Old School. And
that would require, whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
That would require Rod Gilmore to know how to podcast.
Oh, you know they have youths behind the scenes. Come on, Ty.
I don't know, man. They gave him kind of like the Z-Team broadcast equipment.
That's true.
2 years ago when he was doing those late night games for the Pac-12.
He had a VHS camera backpack battery as he was filming himself. Yeah, I remember that.
No offense to Rod Gilmore. I'm sure he's a nice dude. I'm not sure we can trust him to podcast in the year of our Lord 2024.
I know. Well, also,
it's not easy enough yet.
This pick is Lou Holtz now a podcaster again? Did we see that?
I think I saw he started a thing, yeah, or someone started it on his behalf.
Yeah, he has no idea, but Lou Holtz is once again a voice in the sport. Look, I think this is just going to rain down excellence for me.
This is a good one. I may have the best one of all time here, though.
Okay.
I'm very excited about
Pick
this
is in?
one. I am calling this one Tom Brenneman's worst nightmare.
This is so specific.
It is. These are best when they're very specific. You know that.
Yeah.
For my fellow creatures of the internet, you may recall a specific event in internet lore, in sports lore, 4 years ago when announcer Tom Brenneman was in the middle of an apology. I won't kind of rehash why. He's in the middle of an apology on a baseball broadcast between the Reds and the Dodgers. And in the middle of it, he is interrupted by a home run hit by then Reds outfielder Nick Castellanos.
Who's he play for now?
Plays for the Phillies now.
Oh, nice.
He hits this home run, and like kind of the announcer that Tom Brenneman is and was, he feels the need to incorporate this interwoven kind of into his apology. It was very awkward. In the middle of a somber apology, Castellanos, a deep drive to left, that's a home run, and then continues on with the apology.
Yes.
It was instantly memified. It is still an internet thing to this day.
What was it? And there's a drive to left? Was that what it was?
There's a drive to left,
Yeah.
yes. That was the moment. People listening to this for sure have seen this at some point in the past. If not, go and check it out. It's hysterical.
And to be clear, to Tom Brenneman, has taken like impressive steps to get back into the broadcast industry, you know, after the pretty terrible slip that he had that he was apologizing for. And so now he's where is he going to be now?
Fast forward to this year.
Yeah.
He was in the news recently, not for that, thankfully.
Right.
He is going to be calling college football games for the CW. At first, he is going to do Pac-2 games, Pac-12 games. I don't even know what the right nomenclature is. Is it Pac-2 or is it Pac-12?
I think it's technically Pac-12, but everybody calls it Pac-2.
Let's just call it the Pac-2 on the show. You cool with that?
I am.
Pac-2. He's going to start calling, I think, an Oregon State game, but they said in the press release, that the plan is for him to eventually be calling ACC games, which brings up this possibility.
I love this.
Tom Brenneman may have an opportunity, perhaps against his will, to call a game featuring Boston College quarterback Thomas Castellanos.
No relation as far as we know.
No relation. Thomas Castellanos is what? 6'8"? He's a big dude. Huge dude. 6'8", 320.
At least.
Huge quarterback for Boston College. We're joking. Okay. This may not seem like a very big deal to some of you out there listening, especially if you're not creature of meme culture the way I am, the way I think a lot of people are who listen to this show. But let me just say this. If this happens, this is going to be like the sports fans' Hawk Tua, right? This is going to break the algorithms as we know them out on social media. Brenneman, Castellanos, the reunion. What I did as a responsible podcast host, I poked around to see what is the likelihood of this actually happening.
Which Boston College games are already slated for which network early on.
We don't know yet. That stuff will be set a little bit later on in the year. But the CW has 24 games, 11 of which are Pac-2, 13 of which are ACC games. Last season, I went back and checked. BC played exactly one CW game against Virginia.
That counts.
End of September. It was a good game, actually. So it's very much a possibility. And I think the joy, the beauty of this pick is because it covers two possibilities. The first is that Tom Brennan actually does end up calling a game featuring a Castellanos, which again would be freaking amazing.
Gold.
But the second, and I think more likely possibility that would actually be kind of funny, is that the CW, the suits, the higher ups that run the CW, pull some kind of BS and prevent it from happening. That's the thing.
Take attention away. Yeah.
That's the thing. Do they randomly flip Brenneman back over to a Pac-2 game instead of allowing him to call an ACC game? Maybe there's overlap. Do they try to act like he's sick in the buildup to any kind of BC game? I have to presume they're not going to select their games based on who's calling them.
Do you think, though, the CW sports department actually exists? Do you think that there is, like, I don't know, an executive? Do you think there is a commission? Do you think there is, like, a group of people? Like, I just feels like there is a person who is making sure the games are on the air. I don't know why there would be such a huge office. Yeah.
Maybe Brenneman's agent would get in somebody's ear to try and flip this. I'm not gonna lump everybody together here. I've never met the guy, nor have I met his agent. I have no idea how he would feel about this unholy reunion of sorts.
It's just kind of funny for about 14 seconds. Then you have a game to call.
It is, but
he would have to say
Castellanos
his name.
thing. The Brenneman Castellanos reunion, I gotta believe, would be incredible internet content and possibly Tom Brenneman's worst nightmare. So that is my first selection in 2024.
He, by the way, Tom Brenneman, I think he called one of the like 3-5 biggest games of the 21st century. He called Boise State, Oklahoma.
He called the Boise State, Oklahoma
game. Fiesta Bowl, 2007?
For Fox, right?
For Fox with, I want to say Charles Davis. I'm not positive, but that sounds like the combo. So no stranger to the sport. So are you snake picks or is it just back and forth?
Back and forth. Okay. You're up next.
I'm going with Helmet Comms Go Haywire with the second overall pick. New technology and college football don't always make a perfect match.
It never works. I mean, it will work, but there will be
hiccups,
some sort of issue.
There's going to be somebody who puts on the wrong helmet, somebody who puts on a helmet, but the thing isn't activated, and there's going to be a pause in a game, or there's going to be a weird hacking situation where a disgruntled student intern starts streaming like Enema of the State. I don't think kids listen to that album anymore, but there's going to be something where Will Howard is going to have to like start yelling at the sideline and refs for some sort of technology timeout because something has gone awry. And it can happen on either side of the ball. I'm quite excited for it to happen because it absolutely will happen.
This is one of those topics that's going to be very popular over on Message Board Geniuses.
Yes.
Because, look, we had this controversy last year with Connor Stallions in Michigan, and that's still sort of all working itself out. But this is ripe for those types of discussions. When it seems like a team knows a little too much or is a little too prepared for a play, I would imagine it's going to be a popular subject on message boards. Yeah. So if MBG is out there listening,
audio interference,
I am very much counting on them to make sure that we see this type of content. I think it'll be electric.
Okay. What happens if during a Boston College game on the CW, Thomas Castellanos' head comms, his helmet comms go haywire, and Tom Brenneman said, they used to just have signals coming in from the sideline, and that seemed to work just fine. I guess I'm just old school in that way.
And there's a punt to the deep left side of the field.
Well, you owe me $10,000 if all three of these happen at the same time. That's all I'm saying.
It's the ultimate parlay.
Yeah.
Here in fantasy things.
Yeah, that's how it works.
I like that one.
All right. What do you have?
Next up. I've got this one just labeled broadly as struggling to understand Jelly Roll.
Oh, okay.
So his real name is Jason Bradley DeFord. He is 39 years of age.
Great.
Born in Tennessee. He is a rapper turned country musician.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the genre referred to as hick hop.
This is welcome to our new segment. Grandpa Ty and Grandpa Dan review the youths.
I've never heard of hick hop.
He's 2 years younger than I am. Okay, continue.
He's won multiple country music awards. He
Great.
was Grammy nominated for Best New Artist.
Awesome.
Here is why I bring this up. There is a connection to college football, I assure you. Jelly Rolls got a song called Get By, which is what ESPN is using as their official anthem going into the 2024 season. I listened to it. I like it.
Okay.
I like the video. The video is great. The video is probably better than the whole song, but I think it slaps. I think it's good. All right? I think that's how the youth refer to it. It slaps, right? It's good?
At some point, perhaps, yeah.
Sure.
They won't anymore now that you've said
They
it.
won't
Yeah.
anymore. I just vanished it. Yeah.
yeah.
It is not lost on me, though, that there are plenty of mainstream college football media types, a lot of straight-faced button-ups that are going to have a hard time steering out of the super serious lane to talk about an artist named Jelly Roll.
Of course.
Especially a guy who's got that many face tats. Okay. It's just, I want to see this guy on set next to Kirk Herbstreit. I want to see how Herbie responds to this.
It absolutely could happen.
I want to see how Reese Davis responds to this. I want to see Jelly Roll in the booth alongside both Herbie and Fowler to see what that conversation is like, because there is a bit of a track record of putting guys like that in a booth like that.
Yeah.
And just having a lot of awkward pauses, right? A lot of like pleasantries exchanged and laughing here and there, but nobody's really talking to each other and nobody knows what to say.
Yeah. Couple back slaps. All I want is McDonough. That's what I want. Forget the top of the line ESPN. I want Jelly Roll in the middle.
I will talk about McDonough. Don't steal my thunder.
No. Yeah.
Jelly Roll is going to play an outsized impact this year on, I think, the ESPN coverage. And I would expect that he's going to be part of, at some point, their broadcasts. I eagerly await announcers trying to explain Jelly Roll to themselves, to the public as a whole.
Fair enough. I saw the trailer. It looked good.
It's great.
Yeah. All right. I sort of alluded to this before when talking about the TikTok.
The
TikTok.
Need the article in front of it.
I am drafting a player, enters the portal, quits the team, airs grievances on TikTok or Instagram Live. I feel very good about this.
Bonus points if it's a Colorado player, right? That's possible.
I mean, it's almost even money that it's going to be a Colorado player. Yeah, this is just, it's going to be a thing maybe near the end of the season. We saw last year, a couple guys announce intentions to enter the portal, leaving teams in like early November. I think there was a Boise State receiver who left pretty well ahead of when the portal actually opened. It's absolutely going to happen. It's going to be awkward for everybody involved. There will be regrets. There will be apologies. It's going to happen all the same. And in those, when somebody has a huge account and they're doing something live and there's just like comments coming, there's going to be players. If it's a big player who decides he's going to leave, players in the comments recruiting him to their school mid-season. It's going to be a mess and it's going to happen. So I'd love for this pick to hit just because, I don't know, I'm here for chaos, Ty.
This is also a close cousin of one that I kicked around that I'm not going to make one of my main picks, but we haven't talked a whole lot about playoff opt-outs.
Oh, yeah.
Playoff opt-outs. I almost didn't want to select it here because I don't want to jinx it. I don't want it to happen.
Right.
Because guys opted out of the playoff would make for a worse product, a worse viewing experience. We saw the Orange Bowl last year. That was not fun. But I do feel like in the first year of any new system, there is this gray area that exists that can be exploited. And I'm not even saying exploited in like a pejorative way.
Right.
But anytime you've got uncertainty in a big new thing, especially when one of the two entities involved with this, right? There's, of course, the corporate side of it, and then there's the production, the players. There is definitely room for negotiation. There is definitely some play for leverage if you are a star player on any one of these teams, right?
Yeah.
It stands to reason that somebody could go out there and say, yeah, I'm not going to play unless I get a better NIL deal. I don't know if they would announce it on social media.
Yeah, I think it'll come out after the fact kind of thing. Yeah.
It probably comes out after the fact unless they don't play. Then it would be a different thing altogether.
Right.
But I do wonder if this season or if we find out a couple years down the line that there were any conversations like this to try and keep guys around. I know as we kind of get deeper into the NIL era, certainly with the transfer portal and stuff like that.
So you're saying a draft opt-out specifically?
Or
are you saying like portal entry like Malik Murphy last year that he didn't play in the playoff?
I think I'm saying more draft opt-out.
Okay.
More draft opt-out is kind of the spirit of what I'm going for here.
Got it.
But I like over the course of time, I hope college football will get to a point where they can find some better way to like prevent the opt-outs from happening. Maybe it's a contract that guys have to sign when they come to school, when they sign up with a program, that sort of thing. We're not there quite yet. In the interim, though, there is definitely room for something like this, and it wouldn't surprise me if it happens.
I wonder if it's not going to be an opt-out on its face. It's going to be more of a quiet opt-out where if we were in an older system, and this isn't a commentary on the system itself, I'm not intending it for that to be the case, where a star running back is beat up at the end of the year, is looking like he is going to be a first-round pick, and if we were in an old system, we're like, oh, they're the national champion, should be like, oh yeah, I'm absolutely going to gut it out. But now you're like, I'm going to play 3 games on this like pretty shaky Achilles or something like that. That's when I could see the conversation centering around, what are we doing? I'm not going to risk and mortgage my future to play in this like 5-12 game or this 7-10 game. And maybe give yourself more time and wait more to see if they make the national championship or the Final Four or something like that. But I think we see this sort of quiet opt-out situation happen, and we don't necessarily know it, but like it becomes like an ongoing saga at different places. Like, is this player going to play or not who's been beat up? And perhaps in a different year they do, but man, to play 3 more games potentially, it's just not worth it.
Or 4. It could be 4.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, let's move on. So I need your help on this one.
Okay.
It was a journey for me to get to a point where I was comfortable with this. But on the topic of the opt-outs, my first thought was, wouldn't it be something if Colorado made a bowl and Shedeur opted out? Because Shedeur is going to be a top whatever quarterback, provided he has a good season. I have no reason to think he won't. I think there will be an opportunity for him to play in a bowl game. I think Colorado will improve. That was my first thought. Then I pulled on that thread a little bit, and I was thinking, well, what has defined Colorado over the last year plus now in the Deion era? And I think what I was immediately drawn to was the fact that this is a very combustible situation. Not to say he's out there MFing people.
Right.
But made some inflammatory comments on social media, has definitely built the program in a way that sort of like, you're either good enough or you're not, get the hell out. Right. There's not a whole lot of gray area.
Yeah.
It's very black and white.
Yes.
If you're part of this program. And especially with what we saw last year and how intense Deion can get, I started trending in the direction of Deion Sanders blows off a post-game handshake. Because I feel like it's building to that.
Like have a strange, so full blow off or like some sort of heated words a la Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh.
I feel like a full Buddy Ryan blow off.
Okay.
Where he just runs through the tunnel and doesn't even bother going out to midfield.
So no Gary Patterson, Art Briles.
No.
Okay.
And we almost had something like this last year with Jay Norvell in the Colorado State game.
Yeah.
Remember there were words going back and forth. That's a rivalry. And I remember you and I were watching that game late at night, wondering what's going to happen when they meet at midfield. Nothing happened when they met at midfield.
Yeah.
Right. It was just a normal kind of interaction. But Deion is so good at kicking up dust. It wouldn't surprise me if something like this happened, but then pulled a little bit more on the thread. And where I think I came down was somebody more famous shows up at Colorado practice. Do you remember that storyline last year when The Rock showed up?
Yes.
Do you remember that storyline last year when all of these movie stars and A-listers and whoever else were just randomly showing up at Colorado practice?
Yeah.
The comparison was made at the time to Miami back in the days when they still had swagger. You remember those Miami teams?
Of course.
That was sort of what I think people were drawn to. That was kind of the story of Deion Sanders kicking up the dust around the Colorado program.
Yeah. The Rock was on one of those teams, to be clear.
He was on one of those teams.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So my question for you is, who is more famous than the guys we saw running through Colorado's practice last season that we could potentially see randomly showing up this year?
Who is more famous than The Rock that you could believably, credibly show up to a Colorado practice?
I have 2 names.
Okay.
2 names for you to react to. Tom Cruise showing up at Colorado practice randomly would be funny as hell.
Danny Cannell?
Danny Cannell, not quite as famous.
Tom Cruise.
The two names I have here are Tom Cruise and Barack Obama.
Okay. Yeah, those would be huge names. That would... Okay, I think Tom Cruise lives in London, so that would be a stretch. Maybe he has a place in Colorado. I have no idea. So that would definitely be a stretch. What I think you'd have to look at is which huge actor specifically has a big movie coming out this fall.
They're always promoting something, right?
Right. Especially if it's
something.
in the... I mean, who's doing... I guess it's Fox and ESPN calling Big 12 games this year. So, I don't know. So if it's a Disney something movie, a Pixar, or maybe a show on ABC or something like that.
I mean, it could be The Rock again with promoting Moana.
2.
That's
true. Great movie, Ty. The first one, I watched it again with the little guys. It's really good.
I want to know who famous is going to show up at Colorado practice this year that it becomes a game day segment.
When's the next Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning coming out?
I think
that's not until next year or something like that. So probably not Cruise. Because look, this is the full list of sporting events that Tom Cruise has shown up for this year. The Paris Olympics, right? So like ahead of Colorado, Utah or something. I don't know. That's not necessarily Cruise level.
This isn't even me being critical.
Yeah, I know you're not.
I'm genuinely curious to see how big of a name he can get to show up to practice, because that's sort of the brand now. The brand is fake it till you make it. The brand is kick up enough dust so that other people want to come to the program, want to transfer in. We'll see what it looks like after this year. There's a big question about what it looks like after this year.
Well, the thing is, he has to win early, right? It was the winning early that brought the names to Boulder last year.
Gotta win early.
There's going to be different degrees of Toms, right? Cruise is atop the Tom list, but then we're going down. And like, is Tom Everett Scott from That Thing You Do? If they start out 1 and 2, like what is the level? I'm trying to think of other Tom actors on the fly.
Tom Hiddleston, will he come over from the UK?
Tom Hiddleston's tough. That's the thing. It's the Tom factor. I don't know.
Might only be able to get Tom Brenneman. Who knows?
Tom Brenneman. Next. This is my pick.
Your pick.
Okay, I'm going to be more specific because these have been general broadcasty things, although Dion's pretty specific. I'm going to go with either Nico or T-Mac, 2 gentlemen whose names I struggle with. First name, Tetaroa, right?
Tetaroa.
I just nailed it. No, casually nailed it. And Nico, I'm not going to try. They played volleyball. That's going to be a thing that when they make big plays, I have a huge upside crush on Nico, and it's going to be mentioned all the time that he was a really, really strong volleyball player in high school, and same for T-Mac, who I believe is also going to have a huge season for Arizona out wide. I think one of the best, probably 2 or 3 receivers in the country.
Definitely.
Their volleyball prowess is going to be an absolute fun fact. I don't know if it's weekly, but often.
Are you thinking it's one of those deals where we see the grainy high school footage of him playing?
Ty, I have some bad news for you. These guys are so young that all of their footage is in 1080p. This isn't like watching Vince Wilfork's footage. These guys were in high school in like 2022, Ty. You really need to step up grainy footage. Yeah, somebody took an old, beta cam and filmed it in 2021. No, Ty. All in 1080p. It's all in our pockets. One of those
cameras with the crank where you got to crank it to...
Yeah, and it's also indoors in a lit gym, the sport of volleyball. There's no graininess. Their volleyball highlights were shot on like Google Pixels, Ty. Yeah. So that's what I have. I think that's going to be the fun fact of the year.
So you think we'll see video clips, whether they're grainy or not?
Yeah, they'll be crystal clear.
Oh, God, that's
I've seen video clips of both. Really, really impressive.
Let's talk a little bit about defensive Ryan Day. Look, Ohio State's a pro football team at this point, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Between, hawking top transfers, bringing him in, getting Chip Kelly.
Yes.
We talked about it on our previews. You can basically pencil them in as a playoff team. Season hasn't even started yet. Not in earnest. But I'm penciling Ohio State in as a playoff team. I've got them number 1 overall. I think you had them 5th in your bracket.
Yep.
We're both pretty high on Ohio State for obvious reasons. And the schedule makes it such, like, not a whole lot of concern on the Ohio State Buckeyes side. Here is what's funny, though, about this. Somebody like Ryan Day will 100% try to gaslight the rest of us into believing that they are some kind of underdog or like the world is out to get them. It's just what coaches do.
Yeah.
All the good coaches do this same thing. What's funny, though, about Ryan Day is what happened last year with the Lou Holtz thing. It was very clear that the pressure was starting to get to Ryan Day. And it's really informed much of our offseason discussion.
Yeah.
Around the Buckeyes about Ryan Day and his place within this program. You may recall beginning of this year, I want to say, when we had Bruce Feldman on from The Athletic from Fox Sports, and he talked specifically about the pressure that Ryan Day is under and what he's facing and how it's just like the whole narrative around his state of being at Ohio State is really going to a weird place.
Yes.
Ryan Day is no better or worse than any other coach in this regard. But it does feel like that pressure is starting to mount. It does feel like what he has done this offseason is an effective, albeit desperate attempt to try and get over the hump against Michigan and get Ohio State back into the winner's circle, certainly with regard to the playoff, with regard to the national title chase, so on and so forth. I think there is potential within him for another goofy outburst. I don't know if that is him going back at Lou Holtz. I don't know if that is just him vaguely playing the underdog card, which, again, nobody should buy because they are not an underdog literally ever this season. I don't know if it's got something else, some other tinge to it, where Ryan Day has a big win and he just starts crying. Truly lives up to the Crying Ryan nickname that Michigan people have given him.
Okay.
After beating somebody in a big game. But I feel like there is so much potential here for another Ryan Day-ism that I needed to add it to my Fantasy Things roster. So I don't know what it looks like. I don't know when it happens, but I fully expect at some point that we're going to see some defensive, some more emotional, outbursty version of Ryan Day that has been bottled up all season long.
Can I ask you something?
Please.
What do you want, just Ryan Day? Because this game affords you the opportunity to be a little bit more general. Like the way I would phrase it, because of coming off of last year, the head coach takes it personally. And so that encompasses Dabo on the radio. That encompasses
right.
Matt Campbell with the Ohio fan, or the Iowa State fan, really, after the Ohio game, and Ryan Day somehow using an enormous, close, emotional moment to use that as a platform to clap back at Lou Holtz. Do you want that opportunity? Do you want umbrella, coach takes it personally, or do you want to stay specific with Ryan Day?
Let's go head coach takes it personally,
Yeah.
because then I think the Verballerhood has more skin in the game.
Yes.
Head coach taking it personally.
Yeah. So something where that's
fantastic.
Just like it's first of all, let me be the first to say, if I were a major college football coach, I'd last about an hour and a half because I would take everything personally and I would fully melt down almost immediately after entering the facility. That these guys don't do that all the time, given the fishbowl that they're in, given the coverage that they, have to sort of take part in and pay attention to on some level. I understand why these coaches just snap. I don't think the human being is meant to be a major college football coach and absorb everything without snapping. So
no,
I relate to this.
Oh my God. And the thing about it is it's such a high pressure job.
Yeah.
And, most of this stuff is tongue in cheek. It'll be funny if it happens. This one's going to happen at some point. Someone's going to take it personally. But all these guys, to a guy, try to act like they're above it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second afterwards, they call their reporter friends and they want to know what other people are saying about them.
Yes.
So I think it's inherent to the job that you're under a lot of pressure. You can't help but feel a little defensive. You're obviously in a fishbowl, especially at a place like Ohio State. They will take it personally. We will see it. It's just a question of who does it first.
Yeah. I think that's good. I think that's
Let's
right. And I would not have seen the Matt Campbell thing coming last year.
Oh, no. It's just the pressure, right? The
I get
pressure
it.
bottles up.
100% would have been me.
What do you got next?
All right. So I'm inventing something new that this is sort of wish casting that I'm hoping happens this season, because I can't remember, actually no, every year is the situation, but I can't remember being as excited as I am this year for the quarterback potential to have an incredible game followed up by an absolute nightmare. What did I say? Like a 2003 Eli Manning game? What was his rookie year where he threw like 5 picks for the Giants? That there are quarterbacks that are going to have like a 3-touchdown, 4-touchdown game, no picks, and then 3 weeks later, they themselves are going to throw 3 picks. And in my perfect world, I'm calling it 4 derves, that a quarterback will have a 4-touchdown game and in another week have a 4-interception game. And it's extremely rare. But when you look across this sport and you look at how much people are throwing the ball, you look at how much better defenses are, because a lot of the major teams are fortifying secondaries, pass rushes, whatever, that in some instances you're going to be playing against some really rough defenses that you're just not going to be able to figure out that particular Saturday afternoon. And it's just going to be one thing after the other. The one quarterback that I could find, and I looked as far as I could, that had the 4 derves last year, Haynes King, Georgia Tech.
Oh, there's potential with Haynes. There's potential with TVD.
TVD, absolutely.
I don't know how much they're going to throw the ball.
That's true.
You know, that's sort of the question of what that balance looks like. I mean, it's Phil Longo, and we know he likes to throw, but to what end will they want to turn TVD loose? To what end will we get kind of freshman, sophomore year TVD when we were a little bit higher on the guy? We saw his body of work last year. He is definitely not above a big interception game. He didn't get to 4, I don't believe, in any of those, but
dude, Donovan Smith, Alan Bowman, Braden Shager. Like,
wow.
There are guys that Haynes King, once again, we'll see. Hopefully he's better. Will Howard had 10 picks last year. TVD had 12 picks. Your guy, Thomas Castellanos, all 7'3" of him, had 14 picks last year. So there are situations that could unfold this year where somebody has that absolute nightmare of a game, but still, like, you know who's Dylan Raiola? You get a true freshman in there. I think we are big believers in Dylan Raiola's upside.
Sure.
But also, I mean, Nebraska's schedule isn't crazy, but he could just throw in an absolute dumpster of a Saturday and get a couple tip passes that, you know, get unluckily caught by a defensive lineman or something like that. You know, you just have your freshman didn't Peyton Manning set a record for interceptions in a season his rookie year?
Ton of picks.
You're just going to take lumps. And so I think it's going to be a lumpy year for a couple of special somebodies. I want to say Jaden DeLora threw 4 against Mississippi State last year.
Yeah.
So, like, a totally competent quarterback. It just happens to some guys. So and maybe helmet comms ease that, you know, people aren't picking up what you're running and what your hand signals are or whatever. But I still think somebody has it in them. Not just a Threesburger, 3 touchdowns one week, 3 picks another. I want 4 derves. Serving it up.
Let's move on.
All right.
I'm calling this one out again. This might be one of my favorite current college football things, Dan. You've heard me talk about this before.
Yeah.
You did the impression before. I'm going to ask you to do that again, if that's okay with you.
Okay. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm drafting annoyed Shawn McDonough.
Well, he's the thing is with Shawn McDonough is his timber is pretty static, if I'm using the right words here, right? That, like, he doesn't go too high up. He doesn't full freak out, and he doesn't go too far low when things are dreary.
That's exactly right. He kind of stays within, like, a standard deviation at all points during the commentary.
A few DBs in this direction, a few DBs in that. Yeah.
McDonough's a legendary broadcaster.
Yeah.
He has done everything in addition to calling football on Saturdays. I believe he's also the play-by-play, the main play-by-play guy for ESPN's NHL coverage.
Yeah.
So the guy's very versatile. It's experience like that over many years that gives you the confidence to do what I am about to describe. And it is very, very subtle. You don't always even realize he's doing it. He just kind of weaves these quips in organically and in sort of a monotone fashion. Unless you're paying close enough attention, you may not even pick it up. But this happened a couple times last year, and I recall just dying listening to him doing this because he is torching an opposing coach. He did it to Dabo in that Clemson Florida State game.
Yeah.
I forget what the exact situation was, but something just so repulsed Sean McDonough that he couldn't help but just kind of talk it out.
Yeah.
On the mic, it was him and Greg McElroy, and it was like a very professional broadcast, but Sean McDonough had something to get off his chest in that moment. And it happened a couple other times last year. You can't do that kind of commentary unless you've been in the business as long as Sean McDonough.
Right.
Unless you know how to kind of moderate your voice and moderate your tone in a way that it doesn't come across that you're just going over the top.
Right.
So I look forward to the moment this year, and we don't know when it's going to happen. McDonough, I think, is like the number 2 team. He's going to be calling a playoff game. He's going to be again with Greg McElroy this year. I think it's McDonough, McElroy, and Molly McGrath working some of the ABC on ESPN games this year. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it will be a higher profile game. And I would encourage people out there, just listen to what he is saying. A lot of times we tune the commentary out. And that's kind of the purpose of it, right? If it's bad commentary, you can't tune it out.
Right.
But he's good enough that it can kind of fade into the background and fade into just the general watch experience. But listen to Sean McDonough when he is calling games, and you will hear exactly what I am talking about. Something weird, a weird timeout decision, a weird play call, mismanagement of the clock, like something along those lines is going to piss him off. And you are going to hear him very, very quietly go into more detail about why a coach did the wrong thing. It's fantastic.
So a Clemson kicker missed a big kick, and Greg McElroy sort of lamented that it would have been a Hollywood ending. And Sean McDonough said, well, the writers are on strike. Just an evisceration.
But then there was more. There was more after that.
I know. But that's what got people going on social media.
The best. So an annoyed Sean McDonough.
Yeah.
Is what I am going for here.
How many more? I don't know. I feel like I did. Let's see. I did helmet comms. I did Nico and T-Mac. I did Four Dervs. I did. Yeah. My first pick was, I guess I'm just old school in that way. Do I have it? Oh, somebody quitting on Instagram, TikTok Live. I think that's 5.
We have that one. So here's some other ones that I had.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of receiving votes. Continue. I
had Marcus Freeman's fake headset.
You don't believe it's plugged into anything?
I don't believe his headset is plugged into anything.
Okay.
No.
I like that.
I don't. If you watch again, I'll kind of repeat this again.
Who was the coach who just never had a headset? Was it Brady Hoke?
Brady Hoke, I don't think ever had the headset.
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman does have the headset, but the joke here is that he never talks into it. Never. On occasion, you'll see it happen. It happens once in a blue moon.
Mm-hmm.
But watch Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to be on every week. Watch Notre Dame games, and if you don't care about the game, that's great. That's fine. Play a drinking game with this if that's your thing.
If you ever see him talk into it, he's just monitoring.
He is monitoring like he's listening to a car radio.
Okay.
He has never actually, the cameras rarely, if ever, actually catch him talking into that little, the puffy microphone that comes down from the
headset,
from the ear.
Yeah,
from the headset. So I finish half a beer, half a drink, half a beverage, whatever you're into, if he actually talks into the headset.
Okay.
I have that one. I also had players referencing their video game rankings.
Oh, sure.
And I feel like I should have given this one a little bit more weight on my roster this year, because you just know there's going to be a segment on game day or on Big Noon where they've got a bunch of players in a room and the conversation devolves into the video game and who is rated higher. And somebody's going to feel jilted by that. Somebody's going to be overjoyed by their ranking. If I were a player, that would be the kind of thing I would talk about. And I'd say bonus points for any instance in which they bring it up in a very, very serious fashion on a broadcast, like so-and-so felt disrespected that they were only a 78 overall, and they've used it for motivation in the offseason in the weight room, that type of spin, right? You can see that coming a mile away.
91 speed, my ass. Yeah.
I've got that. I've got a coach forgets about the 2-minute warning, which in all likelihood it will be James Franklin.
Yeah.
Didn't mention that earlier when you mentioned Coach Franklin, but there will be some time snafus, even if it feels to me like this should be pretty straightforward. We've all heard of the 2-minute warning for an eternity now. I have Dabo falls down the hill.
Oh, during his sprint? Oh, that's dark, Ty.
I didn't want to
rolls an ankle.
I didn't want to include it on my roster because that's being mean.
Right.
I'm not a mean person. At some point, though, I feel like it's probably going to happen, right?
That's true. Older than you think.
He really goes for it.
I appreciate
running down that hill.
Yeah.
At some point, the legs will not be able to keep up with him, and that could be a hazard for Dabo Swinney. But I got that. By the way, the 2 free spaces that I thought about adding here.
Yeah.
The Gus Johnson pet nickname.
Oh, Maserati Marv.
He had Maserati Marv last year. What was his Blake the Great, I think was his nickname for Blake Corum. There will be a pet nickname that like only quasi sticks.
Chillin' Dylan Gabriel.
Something like that. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the free space in the middle of the bingo card.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that was sent into us
by
the
Thrill Howard.
Will the Thrill. Yeah.
Big
the other one that was sent
orgy.
in.
Continue.
Settle. The other one that was sent into us, and again, free space, center of the bingo card. The annoying travel graphics that we're going to see this year because of conference realignment.
Yeah.
The plane going cross country, the weird animations that the interns put together before Saturday night.
There's going to be like a passport
type of
graphic, even though nobody's actually leaving the country. Yeah.
And we got some other listener suggestions here.
Oh, I take that back. Florida State, Georgia Tech did. Yeah.
That's right. We got some other listener suggestions here that I can read through.
Please.
You go
This
through
is from
your
our
list.
Patreon. Yeah.
No, you go first.
All right. These are my also receiving votes. I have animal causes game stoppage. Could be mascot. Could be intrusion from above, from the tunnel. Could be a weird random fox. I was going to say ocelot. I'm not sure we have ocelots running wild in America in this moment. But some sort of big cat critter, something. Infestation. We've seen, I think there was a tennis match. There's been a couple recent tennis matches that had to like pause for like a significant amount of time for bees. That was a thing. Like the bees took over the wire cam. They had to call in a specialist with like the spray to disperse the bees. So I think it's something. I have sad, lonely fan hangs around despite a blowout.
Okay.
That's just a staple.
So just like the scene I'm thinking is it's like a rainy day or the game has gotten out of hand and they just show the upper deck and there is one solitary soul up there just kind of lamenting that he or she is still present.
They're doing the calculus that it's either hang out for another 28 minutes in a 55-13 game or go home and deal with their old lady. And they've decided that, you know what? I'm going to stick with Section 321. So we have that. You said the uncomfortable explainer graphics, but I'm going to say not just about traveling, that like ESPN has dipped its toe into the like very quick Korean animation style graphics.
Oh, they have, haven't they?
Yeah. And Fox has done stuff like that. There's been a lot of those, and we're just like, we don't need this. This isn't something that everybody needs to like these weird animated skin graphics. I don't want that. I have streaming technical difficulties as more gets put on ESPN Plus, on Peacock, and what have you. I think we're just going to have more issues. I have Trent Dilfer melts down or runs hot. So not a full meltdown.
Or both.
Trent Dilfer just running hot. I think that's an easy pick. How about a football ends up in Lake Michigan with the Northwestern Temp Stadium?
This should have been your number one overall pick.
I know. Well, you only get 2/3 of a season or whatever. But I would say wind hijinks on Lake Michigan or any sort of unusual, unorthodox weather hijinks involving Northwestern's Temp Stadium.
That is too freaking funny. Have you done a part 2 yet?
Like Malik Murphy is just throwing the ball out of bounds to avoid taking a sack and then accidentally hits a passerby walking by Lake Michigan on the path. Just like
is that path going to be open?
Oh, probably not. You probably can't just walk up to the stadium and watch the game. But like there will be a Jan Brady situation at that stadium. And
without question.
Yeah.
I just think it's kind of cool that it's so kind of portable.
Yes.
It is a ridiculous concept that this thing even happened.
Mm-hmm.
15,000 seats, even for Northwestern. You know, we've dunked on Northwestern over the years, but that's a very, very comfy confine for a stadium.
Yeah, we're going. If you're going to the Duke game, come say hi.
If you're going week 2, it's week 2?
Week 2, Friday night, September 6th, I believe is the day. I have Iowa scores 30 points in a game. I don't know, Ty. It could happen. Iowa scores 30 points in a game.
Okay. Okay.
I've got somebody drops 80 points in September. It's going to happen.
Is this Oregon, Idaho territory?
It could be. I mean, anybody with like a backup quarterback that they want to get quality reps and they're going to still throw up 60, we could see some teams drop 80. I have unorthodox coaching fashion, especially since Matt Rule is back in our lives. Smock rat Matt Rule.
The smock, yeah.
I just think we're going to see more of this. People like popping, right, on social media. People like sort of distinguishing themselves as unique. I don't know. I think it could happen.
This is like the Biff Poggiification of college football coaching attire.
I have unusually low rent broadcast because as these networks are spending a ton of money for the rights, they don't want to spend a ton of money on the production on top of that. So you're going to see more remote broadcasts. You're going to see fewer games, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Fewer games with like the best replay cameras or the most cameras getting the most angles or the most pylon cams, all that kind of stuff. I think we're going to see a lot of these networks scale back on the non-headliners, right? Like the primetime NBC game will have all the bells and whistles. You know, the primetime Herb Street Fowler game, all the bells and whistles. But as you trickle down to like the Boston College CW game, not that CW is paying a lot of money, but as you trickle down like the third biggest ESPN game, the fifth biggest like Fox game of the week, whatever, that you're going to have some like 2007 style podcast technology calling these games. Like, oh, the main feed cut out, so here's Petros Papadakis. Yeah. So I have that. I think is that all I have? Oh, I have a Deion Sanders one.
Yeah.
So I basically have Deion Sanders resigns at the end of the 2024 season with a statement that begins with, "While it has always been my intention to coach this Colorado team for the foreseeable future, unfortunately for health-related reasons, on the advice of my doctors, I must step down."
Oh, wow. That's dark. Speaking of dark.
I'm not intending for it to be dark, but I have and he has legit health problems, right? He's got a foot situation. Problems. I just think we're going to get a statement like that on December 11th.
There's a lot of speculation what it looks like for Deion after this year, especially since he hasn't recruited worth a lick
from the high school
level.
Yeah.
At the high school level.
Got a 5-star offensive tackle coming in this year, but that was sort of it.
Here are some others. Here, I'll play this again.
Yeah.
These are some of my favorites that came in via Twitter, via our Patreon, via all the places I prompted to try and get responses. Dennis chimes in and he says, any talk about the early kickoff time combined with a long travel combination?
Yeah.
A long travel situation for all the West Coast teams that come to the East Coast and are down early in a noon game. So this is the body clock situation, right? And there are plenty of opportunities for that this year. Plenty of opportunities this year, especially as we talk about things like the Big Ten and how it's changed. We've got a couple of those that are going to be the case in the ACC as well. Zach says, announcers uncomfortably talking about Bobby Petrino's latest stint at Arkansas.
Yeah, that's true.
I love this one. They will never go so far as to show the neck brace picture on the actual broadcast. That will be for the internet. Yeah. But there will be a circumstance for sure where an announcer has to talk, at least in the early part of the season, maybe at some point in September, about Petrino coming back to Fayetteville.
Is that Sean McDonough? Are you combining a frustrated Sean McDonough? We all remember what happened the last time he was in Fayetteville.
And they're going to play a little coy with it, not give too much away.
Bit of a kerfuffle.
Your McDonough is so much better than mine.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, God. All right. Eric says, video game references by announcers who don't play video games. Mm-hmm. I think that's a given. That's a good one. Yeah. And then Old Napkin Eye, that's what it says here from out on Twitter, says, announcers making the case for a 4-loss SEC team in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
This one should have been higher up on the draft board.
Yeah.
This is going to happen. This is absolutely going to happen, especially, unfortunately, as ESPN is now the sole rights provider, sole rights owner, whatever I don't even know what I'm saying here, but They own the rights to the SEC.
Yeah.
It behooves them to try and get as many SEC games in their college football playoff as possible. So you're going to see this happen. Not to say it's an edict from on high that you must try and promote so-and-so SEC team with 4 losses, but I just think this will be a thing. And frankly, there might be some validity to this too. I don't even know. 4 losses feels like a lot to be in a playoff, but we don't know yet how this thing is going to shake out and how the committee is going to rank teams and what it's going to look like at the end of the year in these conference championship affairs.
Yeah.
So it may not be as far-fetched a concept as it at least sounds to the ear here on, the latter stages of August.
One of my favorite things is watching a random SEC network, like late October, early November game, and then it cuts to the halftime show where they're going through highlights and they're having a conversation about the state of the sport, and you're just like, well, this is a halftime show. And then you kind of slowly realize that it's the SEC network, and they start saying things. You're like, is this cable news? Are we just watching, like, you give Vanderbilt Michigan's schedule, they're running the table too. You're like, what? Who is talking about this? It's amazing. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do, where it looks like a studio show, it sounds like a studio show, and this is true of any conference network, in my experience, where they're just like so casually like saying insane things. It's my favorite element of college football media, that they're just like, look, I know it's ridiculous to say 10 of these 12 teams should come from the SEC, but show me 3 Big Ten teams that, it's so good.
We're gonna get some of that this year.
Oh, it's the best.
That's gonna be fun. All right, look, write in solidverbal@gmail.com. Hit us up. Let us know what we missed. You can also always reach out on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're posting threads. We're posting everywhere these days, especially now that the season is officially here. This is a little bit of a different venue for our Fantasy Things draft. Normally, we do it in front of a live audience. Normally, we get the full audience kind of energy behind these picks. This time, though, because we're going to games this season, because we did so many preview episodes, we decided we were going to do this one from the normal studio. So hope you enjoyed it. Jot these things down. Play along as the season goes on. There will be other opportunities for Fantasy Things that I'm sure we're going to call out as we get into game previews, as we get deep into the throes of this season. There will be more opportunities to have this goof, but at least as a starting point, I think that's where we are at with our Fantasy Things rosters for the year 2024.
Man, now I regret not including a fantasy thing of like SEC network hosts turning to each other and be like, Kirby's looking trim, right? Commenting on how handsome coaches in the league look. Lane Kiffin lost some weight. He's looking slick, right? There is always that undercurrent. Again, not specific to the SEC network, but that's just where I've seen it, right? Where it's like the SEC meetings where they're talking about like, I don't like Shane Beamer's looking tan. There's always like the real subtle, like, do we have the most handsome group of coaches in the country? A lot of people are saying it.
We can include this one as a free space for everybody. We'll call it conference bootlickers.
A little bit. Yeah. I wouldn't see it's usually okay. So there's overt, and then there's just like, they're still talking about how good looking Nick Saban is. It's great.
Looks great for his age.
He
right?
doesn't.
Looks good.
Coach, I got to say, you don't look a day over. It's
still walks 3 miles every morning.
Oh my God. It's so good. Like, did you guys check out Steve Sarkisian's lats? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? He might be new to the SEC, but he's not new to the gym. Anyway, it's so good. It's my favorite thing. Pay attention to it. Like, you should go out of your way. I'm only watching this network during like a weird halftime, it's LSU Florida halftime or something. And it's just like, oh man. Or I see the clips, or they're streaming from the meetings or media day. I love it. It's so good.
All right. Well, write in, the address, solidverbal@gmail.com. Check us out at verballers.com, giving away fabulous prizes for week 1. You have limited time to get in on our Run the Board game, to get in on our Patreon, to compete again for fabulous prizes. More to come on that front as the week progresses, but verballers.com is where you can go to find out more about how you can not only support the show, but take part in all of the festivities, Dan.
Yeah.
That's all we got. We will be very busy this week. Not the least of which is our show on Tuesday, our big Week 1 preview episode that's going to drop on Thursday, and the first of many Big Ten Breakfast video episodes that's going to drop out on our YouTube channel, which you can find, of course, at big10breakfast.com. Hope you will be there every step of the way with us. For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildenbrandt. Thanks as always for downloading, for listening, for supporting.
Yes.
For taking part in another college football season with us. Stay solid.
Peace. Did you notice that Mark Stoops is doing something different from his hair?
It's a different kind of like...
Oh, it's waving in the wind. It's great.
Is that molding clay? What is that?
So good.